lockdown begin. Raze back live again. Pop culture, entertainment, of course, the hot topics. Traveling somewhere in the tropics. Usually for Zerb, for smoke show panels, $1 million plays. We expanding the channel, they say opinions like assholes. Watch your mouth at all times, and don't mess up the cash flow, we live.
What up, what up, what up, what up? Raze back live again on this early Wednesday morning, guys. Midnight for a lot of people in the States. But guys, we all know the breaking news. Hit that like button as you guys come in. There has been a verdict on 4 of the counts for P. Diddy. We was live earlier today, and we were analyzing what's going to happen now that the jury is hung on the RICO charges. And everybody is trying to say maybe that means he is found guilty on the other 4 charges. I've been looking around. I have been researching, and I've been researching the predicates that is needed to find him guilty on the RICO. And I have my theory, very well thought out theory of what is going to happen tomorrow, guys. And as you guys see in the title, I have Diddy will be found not guilty of RICO and the sex trafficking, guys. He will be found not guilty of RICO and sex trafficking. I know it's hung right now with the RICO, but let's just say they go back and they have the debate on the RICO. He will be found not guilty of the RICO and the sex trafficking, but also he will be found guilty of the Mann Act, guys. He will be found guilty of the Mann Act. There's 2 charges of the sex trafficking, which carries a minimum of 15 years to life in prison. They're trying to say he sex trafficked Jane and he sex trafficked Cassie. I think he's going to be found not guilty of those 2. I think they split the baby and they say, you know what? We're going to find him guilty of the Mann Act. And the Mann Act carries a maximum of 10 years. So from 0 to 10 years. So he could get time served on what I predict he is going to get found guilty of. And it's going to be up to the judge if the judge want to give him 10 years or not. And I'm going to give you guys my reason for why I've come to this conclusion. And I think this is going to be at 9:00 in the morning. They're going to go in there. They're going to deliberate for however many hours, right? And I think I have it. I think I have it, guys. And let me tell you. Let me see who's in the building. This is not gonna be a long live. I just wanted to come up here. I had a couple of beers right now, and I just wanted to make my prediction before tomorrow. Big day. Shout out to Big Marcus in the building. What you think, Big Marcus? What are you thinking right now? Big Marcus? Shout out to Yvonne Curry is in the building. Salute, Yvonne Curry. Salute, Drabanot is in the building. How you doing, Drabanot? Smash that like button. Yeah, shout out to you, Yvonne Curry. Yeah, tell them to smash that like button. I still gotta get you that wrench, Yvonne. I'm gonna get you that wrench, Yvonne. Jay Now says Carter 4. Yeah, salute to Carter 4. I gotta talk to Carter 4. Hit him up, see what's going on. My guy Carter 4. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Jay Now. Rob, aka BK's finest. Can't wait. Yeah. Well, hey, Rob. I'm about to explain to you right now why I believe he's going to be not guilty of both RICO and sex trafficking. Those are the biggest charges. The RICO have a minimum of 10 years to life. I think the jury came back and said, you know what? We do not want to expose this guy to getting life in jail, in prison, by finding him guilty. Now, there is some holdouts on the RICO, right? But I believe it's going to go down, and I'm going to explain to you how it's going to go down. Now, Ken Patmore's in the building. He says free Diddy. Big Marcus, no Diddy, but free Diddy. Man, hey, smash the like button, guys. They're going to put his blank away for 20 plus years. All right, well, hey, everybody's throwing around their opinions on what's going to happen because of this hung jury, guys. But I'm telling you guys, I think I have the answer right now, and I'm going to explain 10 years while he will nearly be 70 years old. Yeah. See, the Mann Act carries up to 10 years, not a minimum. So the judge don't have to sentence him to 10 years. but it's up to 10 years. Now, the sex trafficking, which I think he's going to be found not guilty of, is a minimum of 15 years to life. The RICO racketeering, the thing that's hung up right now, is a minimum of 10 years to life. Okay, I don't believe the jurors want to expose them to that, and I'm going to tell you why right now with these predicates and what this means. Kaboom! Guess who stepped to the room? Shout out to you, Future World Films. Hit that like button, guys. How you doing, Future World Films out there inside Puerto Plata? How you doing? How you doing? I really don't have an opinion. I'm just here to watch the show. Free D. All right, all right. It's not a hung jury. It's a hung jury so far on the, if it remains that way, it's a hung jury on the RICO racketeering. Now it could go either one of two ways. Not guilty when they go back into deliberations of the RICO racketeering. It could go guilty, or it could go, it could just remain hung. And the judge could just throw that out and go with the other four, or keep it, and they can retry for the RICO, whatever they want to do or whatever. Let me see. They know he's guilty on them other charges. They just don't want to put him in prison for life. And that's called, you know what that's called? That's called jury nullification. And I've been telling you guys about jury nullification. And as I've seen everybody else been talking about, what does this mean? What does this mean? The predicates of RICO is arson, is the bribery, right? Is extortion. And people was telling me for the longest time that they've proved that, right? And guess what else? Sex trafficking and engaging in prostitution across state lines, guys. Those are other predicates of RICO, right? Now, hear me out. Hear me out. They have the verdict already for 4, but they don't have the verdict for the RICO. Okay. The Mann Act. Listen to what the Mann Act is, guys. And this is the lowest charge they can find them guilty of, right? And this is why I think they found them guilty of this one, but not the sex trafficking. Okay. The Mann Act, also known as the White Slave Act, is a U.S. federal law passed in 1910 that prohibits the transportation of individuals across state lines for prostitution or debauchery, okay? Or for any other immoral purpose. While initially intended to combat forced prostitution and human trafficking, okay? Its broad wording led to its urge in targeting consensual sexual activity, including unmarried couples, guys. You got to hit that like button, guys. I think I figured out what is going on with this. Okay. It says across state lines for prostitution, right? Or human trafficking, which is sex trafficking. Now, if the jury found that man guilty of the Mann Act, right? Which I do think they found them guilty of the Mann Act. And people are predicting that he's going to be found guilty of the Mann Act, right? That means they have the 2 predicates they need to find them guilty of the RICO, guys. Are y'all following me? Right? Are y'all following me? That means they will already have the 2 predicates they need to find him guilty of the RICO, which is racketeering, which carries a minimum of 10 years to life. Right? But they are not finding him guilty. They are not finding him guilty of the RICO. They are coming up short, right? They are coming up short. Now, if they find them guilty of the sex trafficking, right? Now, I know that says human trafficking and forced prostitution. All right, let's just say this. Now, a predicate of the RICO is definitely sex trafficking, which he's charged with sex trafficking, right? All right, let's just say this. If they found him guilty of sex trafficking, right? One of the acts. And if they found him guilty of the Mann Act, which is forced prostitution, okay? Now, it does say human trafficking also, right? But if they found them guilty of the Mann Act and found them guilty of the 2 acts of the sex trafficking, they would definitely already have the predicates for the RICO. Because then they would have sex trafficking, which they found them guilty of, the Mann Act, which is the prostitution across state lines, definitely. That's 2 right there. right? So listen, hear me out. If they found them guilty, like people say, oh, he must be found guilty of all four of those other charges already. Why wouldn't they find him guilty on a RICO, and why would they be arguing so hard, can't come to a verdict on the RICO charge? If you already found them guilty on the Mann Act, which exposes him up to 10 years in prison, if you already found them guilty on both charges, both counts of the sex trafficking, Jane and Cassie, which that's a minimum of 15 years to life, so you expose them to that already, why would you be so hard line on not finding him guilty of the RICO racketeering? You've already exposed this man to 15 years to life in prison already. So what's the big deal? Now, and some people were saying the jurors came back and they was kind of mad that the judge was telling them to go back in there. And they were like, look, we fall apart on that. We are not going to come to a conclusion, a consensus, on the RICO, right? Right? Here's what I think is going on. And it's just my guess. Guilty on the Mann Act. Not guilty on the 2 sex trafficking charges. Some jurors want to find him guilty on the RICO, right? Now, here's the hang up on a RICO. Some of those jurors probably think that he distributed the drugs. That's why they asked for the definition of drug distribution by handing it to people. Some of them probably think he did the arson on Kid Cudi car. Some of them probably think he didn't. They don't like the definition of the drug distribution. They don't think they have enough evidence about the arson with Kid Cudi's car, right? Right? So even though, see, according to people who were saying, oh, they must have found them guilty on the sex trafficking and the Mann Act. If they did, they would already have the 2 predicates to find them guilty of the RICO. You get what I'm saying? So it leads more to me that either they are going to find them not guilty on sex trafficking and the Mann Act, or guilty on the Mann Act, not guilty on the sex trafficking. Right? That's the most plausible, right? That's the most plausible thing I believe so far. And I'm going to get to another scenario. Now, let me just tell you this next scenario real quick first. Let me put them all out there so that y'all guys decide. It's not going to be a long live. I'm drinking a beer. I'm just having some fun right here. Another scenario is they don't believe Bad Boy Records is a RICO racketeering criminal enterprise, right? They maybe believe Diddy did this stuff on his own without the RICO racketeering enterprise, right? So they say, you know what? We are going to be hung on the RICO, but let's just say we have found them not guilty on the sex trafficking, but find them guilty on the Mann Act. Or find them guilty on sex trafficking and the Mann Act, but not RICO, because we don't believe Bad Boy Records is a criminal organization. Right? So that all those other predicates is null and void. Even if they found them guilty on sex trafficking, yeah, they would have the 2 predicates for the RICO. If they found them guilty on the sex trafficking and the Mann Act, they would have the 2 predicates, the sex trafficking and the crossing state lines for the prostitution, right? But they don't believe that it's a criminal organization. He just did that on his own, right? But my hesitance about the 2 guilt, both of them being guilty, sex trafficking and the Mann Act being guilty, is because, all right, if that's the case, if they found them guilty on the sex trafficking and the Mann Act already, you done exposed this man, like I said earlier, to 15 years to life in prison already. So why would you fight so hard? Why would you fight so hard against finding him guilty on a RICO? At that point, you've already exposed him. His fate is in the judge's hands for 15 years of life. So why would you care at that point if you find him guilty on RICO or not? You're like, all right, we're going to deliberate some more. Okay. You know what? All right, let's just find him guilty on the RICO. We found them guilty on the other 2 anyway. You know what I'm saying? So that is an option. That is an option, guys. Let me know what y'all thinking about my theory. But that theory I just said about finding him guilty on the other 2 and not the RICO, I say that's less plausible, because I'm like, he's already exposed. You already exposed him to life in prison. So what's this hang up and hung jury? you might as well, all right, just go ahead and get it over with, found guilty of all charges, and enjoy your 4th of July. I don't think that's it. I think the most plausible answer is what I said in the title. Not guilty on a RICO. Or you could say, you know, we leave the RICO hung. If they don't, they go back tomorrow. They can't find come with a verdict on a unanimous verdict on a RICO. Leave it hung. Not guilty on the sex trafficking. Guilty on the Mann Act. I think the jurors can go home and have a good conscience. They can say, well, he did some bad things. We can't deny he did the transportation of prostitution, right? It's not gonna be, he's not gonna get 15 years of life on that charge. So, all right, we go ahead and split the baby, find him guilty on the Mann Act, let the judge sentence him from anywhere from time served up to 10 years, and call it a day. Not guilty of sex trafficking Jane, not guilty of sex trafficking Cassie. Let's not expose them to 15 years to life. And with the RICO, some jurors are still trying to say, well, he did do drug distribution. He did do drug distribution. He did do the arson to Kid Cudi's car. He did more than likely he did bribery by bribing the hotel for the thing, and you know, extortion $20,000 from Cassie mom, right? But not all the jurors want to expose Diddy to the RICO, which is 10 years to life, guys. I think that's what's going on. Now, I just laid it out there. What is your scenario, guys? What is your possible scenario? I think I nailed it. I think that's the most plausible thing, because why would they be fighting? Why would they be fighting if they already found them guilty of all the other charges? Why even fight to find them not guilty of the RICO? At that point, it doesn't make any sense. If you found them guilty of those other charges, you already doomed that man to at least 15 years in prison. You know what I mean? You already doomed him to 15 years in prison. So what's all of this getting angry with the other jurors and well, we don't think it's RICO. We don't think it's RICO. We're not gonna find him guilty. Why be so angry about that? You already exposed them. If you already found them guilty of all the other stuff. So what's the big deal at the end of the day on a RICO racketeering at that point? Let me see. All right, let me see what y'all saying. Hot Wing is in the building. Hey yo, word to your mother, son. You heard? Yeah. Because I'm going around, I'm hearing people saying, oh, this must mean he's guilty. This must mean they found him guilty on the other charges. I'm like, wait a minute. I give people time. I'm like, wait a minute. Let me analyze this. And I'm like, no, that does not mean that at all. That does not mean that at all. Hell, they could find him not guilty on sex trafficking and the Mann Act. And some jurors will still probably think he's guilty of the RICO without even having to have the sex trafficking and Mann Act in here. Because really, if let's just say this, let's say this scenario. Let's say if they found him not guilty on sex trafficking and the Mann Act, right? They can still find him guilty with RICO, on RICO. You know why? Because they don't need the sex trafficking as a predicate, and they don't need the prostitution as a predicate. Guess what else? Because you know why? You know why? If they found them not guilty on the sex trafficking in the Mann Act, you know why? They don't need those two charges for the RICO, because they still have arson, they still have bribery, right? They still have arson, they still have bribery, they still have extortion. And that sounds more plausible. They wouldn't even need the sex trafficking to find them guilty of the RICO. So I think some jurors are saying, look, and drug distribution. Some jurors are like, all right, he did these, and some jurors are like, nah, he didn't do that. So technically, there's more of a chance he's found not guilty on sex trafficking and Mann Act more than the opposite way people were trying to make it sound. Am I making sense to you guys? Because they don't need sex trafficking and prostitution to find them guilty of the RICO. Like I said, they have arson, they have the extortion, they have the bribery, the hotel video, They have those three to be able to find him guilty of the RICO anyway, without the whole sex stuff. So what's out there right now, he can be found not guilty of those other things unanimously. I'm not saying he is, but I'm saying he could be found not guilty unanimously. And the few holdouts, the people that want him to be guilty of the RICO because of the drug distribution, because of the arson, because of the bribery, right? And what was that? The arson, drug distribution, the extortion, and the other one. They don't need the sex stuff. So he could be found not guilty, and they could still be debating whether or not he's guilty of the RICO right now, racketeering. People are not looking at it like that. I just said, wait a minute, this is not adding up. Just because they hung, that don't mean they found them guilty on those other things, other charges. So I'm just putting out all the scenarios out there for you. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm crazy. I don't think I sound crazy at all. Because I'm like, if they already found them guilty of the two other charges, the four other charges, what's the hang up? Why are they even going back and forth on the RICO at this point? Drabanot says, yep. Shout out to you. Diddy not guilty. Oh, hey, look at this guy. Ringo TV Reacts is in the building. Ringo TV Reacts is in the building. Shout out to you. Now, Ringo TV, you've been calling it. You've been calling it not guilty. Ringo. Y'all gotta subscribe to my guy Ringo TV Reactions. Y'all, he's been calling Diddy not guilty the whole time. Guys, there's more of a chance that he's gonna be found not guilty on those four other charges than guilty. People want him to be guilty so bad. Y'all are bugging. Well, you know what? I ain't gonna say that because everybody got a right to their opinion. But if you look down at those predicates, they don't need the sex trafficking and the prostitution to find them guilty on the RICO. So really, they probably found him not guilty on that other stuff. And they just, trying to decide, is he guilty of the racketeering in RICO? Let me see everybody hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Does that make sense? Living in Time TV, aka Lit TV, is in the building. Salute. So there are 4 verdicts, but we don't know guilty or not. Then RICO is hung. Yes, exactly. Jose Clary. And my theory is, I think I nailed it, man. I told you I'm a common sense type person. I stood in front of that court building saying, look, do not find this guy guilty of RICO racketeering, because that'd be a set of horrible precedent for the United States of America. That man is not guilty of RICO racketeering. That was not a criminal organization like the mob, the mafia. Get the hell out of here with that. Now, I think I cracked this code. The most plausible thing, I'm going to get it, and I could be wrong. Maybe guilty of the Mann Act, not guilty of sex trafficking. And the jury is going to remain hung on the RICO. Anybody that tells you different, that tells you he is guilty automatically of the other 4 things, that's just wishful thinking. That's just them. They had a vested interest in finding this man guilty on stuff, and that's just hopeful, wishful thinking. What do y'all got to say? I know it. I know it's not popular to say that Diddy is going to get, be not guilty. I know it's not popular. I'm just looking at it. I'm analyzing it. It's more than likely he's not guilty on the sex trafficking in the Mann Act than he is guilty. Because they don't need for them to be hung on a RICO. They don't need it. Listen, if he was already guilty of the Mann Act, that's prostitution right there. That's a predicate of the RICO. If he was already guilty of the sex trafficking, that's another predicate for the RICO. That means he would be guilty of the RICO racketeering. Like I said, only way is that some of the jury members say, well, RICO is invalid because that's not a criminal organization. Well, then I'm like, well, why are y'all fighting so hard? You already found them guilty of the other 2. Of the other 4 stuff, might as well go ahead and find them guilty of the RICO. Why fight it so hard? I'm just trying to be analytic. I'm trying to use my common sense on this. He is more than likely not guilty of those other 2 charges than he is guilty. Don't let these other YouTubers, other people fool you because they just want to feel good tonight. They wanted to go to bed feeling good because they know that's not good news for that thing to be hung. Because everybody kept telling me, Raze, oh, they proved RICO already, Razor. They proved it. It's evident that they proved it. How can you not see it? The arson, the bribery, this and that, yeah. So they're trying to find angles and ways to where they could frame it. Oh, that must mean he's guilty. That must be no. It's more of this, and if I'm reading it, just use your common sense. Get your bias out of here. Get your hatred towards Diddy out of here. Guys, there's a huge chance that he could be found not guilty on sex trafficking and Mann Act, and they are trying to hash it out. That's why they're fighting so hard on the RICO racketeering. Because they don't need the sex stuff in the RICO racketeering to find them guilty. They just need the arson. They just need the bribery. They just need the drug distribution. And the other thing, what was the other thing? It was some other thing. They don't need the sex stuff. So he can actually be not guilty, and they can just be arguing about the RICO racketeering. The RICO racketeering, that's minimum 10 years. Now, I do predict, my prediction is, I don't think they're going to find him. I don't think they found him not guilty and everything. I think they're just going to nail him with the Mann Act, which carries a maximum sentence of 10 years, and there's no minimum. So the judge can really just give him time served if he is found guilty of the Mann Act. And then the jury could go home happy. They could go home and celebrate the 4th of July, guys. But like I said, anybody, like everybody can have their own opinion. But I believe, see, Glenn says new prediction wrong. It makes the most sense. People are saying that means he's guilty on the other counts. If he's guilty on the other counts, why are they fighting about the RICO racketeering? Why are they holding you already exposed this man to 15 years of life then if you found him guilty on the other stuff. What I'm drinking, I got my Coors Light, man. I got my Coors Light. Bro going says, Dre, hey, y'all not believing me? Like I said, shout out to my guy, Ringo TV Reactions in the building. He's coming home. Let's see. That's the only holdup they might have played themselves because the witness proved it wasn't a RICO. That's why the defense didn't call anyone. Yeah, and I've been saying this is not a RICO racketeering charge. This shouldn't even been brung to the court. This new rookie judge, see, he didn't have the courage to just throw it out. This thing shouldn't even seen the light of day for the RICO racketeering. That's an embarrassment. That's a stretch and a far reach for the federal government to do something like this. And I gave them a chance. I didn't say it before the trial. I wouldn't dare bring myself to say it before the trial. I said, let me see what the prosecution has. Let me see what the federal government has before I make that decision. And about the third week, I started seeing what they was like talking about, just freak offs and drug use and stuff. Like, wait a minute. This is not no RICO racketeering. Wait a minute. His employees is not a part of a conspiracy. That's just Diddy doing Diddy things. You know what I mean? That's just Diddy maybe doing criminal stuff, but this is not a RICO racketeering. This is what is these text messages and freak offs and Jane and Cat? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Yeah, don't forget to smash that like button, guys. I'm telling you, Razor, don't listen. LOL, he's in denial, bro. Rob, AK, how am I in denial? They are already hung on the RICO racketeering. With Rob, you guys, you two, was in my chat saying they prove RICO. It's impossible for them not to say he's guilty. But bro, it's not impossible. They are hung. Some jurors say no RICO. I think you guys are in denial. You guys are in denial that the feds can actually lose this case. Because I don't know how in the world do y'all get from a hung jury on a RICO, but he got to be totally guilty on the other 4? No, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense because they wouldn't be fighting so hard. If he's guilty on the other 4, they exposed him to 15 years to life already. So why fight on the RICO? Why fight for his innocence for the RICO? What's the point? I mean, the judge give him life on the other charge, up to 10 years on the Mann Act, up to life on Jane, life on sex trafficking Cassie, 2 charges. Nah. There's more of a possibility of he's not guilty, he's acquitted on those other acts, and the only hang up is the RICO. And it makes sense. It makes sense because if you want to believe he burnt Kid Cudi's car, if you want to believe that was extortion, $20,000 from Cassie's mom, if you want to believe the bribery for giving $100,000 for the videotape in the hotel, right? That's 3 predicates right there they could find him guilty on for the RICO racketeering. That's already 3. And they don't need anything but the sex acts. So like I said, they could have found him not guilty on the Mann Act and the 2 charges of sex trafficking and still find him guilty on the RICO. With just the arson and the bribery and, the other stuff I was saying that's a predicate for the RICO that don't even involve sex. Hit that like button, guys. I know people don't like to hear it because people just want to feel comfortable thinking Diddy is going to be found guilty. Y'all want to go to Tisa Tells. You know what I mean? Y'all want to hear her say Diddy is done 5 times a day on her live streams. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy, but that's just the way it is with human. They want to be in a safe space, so they want to listen to people that's going to tell them what they want to hear. I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I analyzed it for hours after this. I analyzed it. And I listened to some other podcasts and stuff, news. I was like, wait a minute. This is not adding up. Y'all are saying he's guilty on these other things. It's more of a chance that he's not guilty on these other things. How do they put him up for such charges though without being sure of evidence? Yeah, it's so much. It's crazy. It's only circumstantial evidence. The only real hardcore evidence for the stuff he's charged with, see him beating up Cassie, that's not hardcore evidence because he's not charged. He's not charged with domestic violence. So they do have him on video beating her up, but he's not charged with that. So all the other evidence they have was witness testimony that may have been shoddy, may have been BS, may have been lies, right? The only hardcore evidence that anybody put inside that courtroom that you know what I'm saying, that really could go to a criminal organization, to be honest with you, and the prosecution didn't even put this out. The defense put this out. If they would have charged Cassie as being a co-conspirator and said Cassie is probably the underboss of P. Diddy in this racketeering thing, because Cassie is the one on audio threatening to kill somebody.
So you're telling me that he showed you a video of who killed Cassie? Then that's not a real video because he's never
in that position. You would have been naked. I'm just saying, if you
so
were,
he's in the video.
I'm saying if I had a picture.
Is he in the video?
Yeah, but I'm saying if I had a picture,
then that's not me.
But I'm just saying, look, hold on. You have to understand. If I had a picture of you naked.
If there's a picture of me naked, that's completely different than a video of me.
So
the video that he showed you, he's in it.
Yeah, we can try to pull it.
How are you gonna? Oh no, your phones are right here.
Try to pull it. You can try to pull it. You can try to pull it.
On the internet?
Yeah, you can try to pull it.
Where?
I'm not gonna lie to you.
Okay, which phone?
You can bring my
the
phone.
Samsung?
Yeah, you can bring it.
So you have it or you don't have it? Can you just be clear with me? Do you have it?
I saw it and I don't want to ever see it again.
I know you don't, but I want to see it.
Yeah, but I don't want to see it. Bro.
Yeah, you don't have to see it, but it's my life and I'll kill you.
Yeah, but
I will kill you if you don't show me right now. I will kill you and I will hide you and I will cut you up and put you in the dirt right now. Pull it up. If you have it, pull that up. Because if not, I'm going to kill you and then he's going to kill you again. So just do it. Pull that up right now.
Guy, did y'all hear those words coming out of Cassie's mouth? That's the only real evidence of a criminal enterprise. If you want to stretch it out, you could say that Cassie was Diddy's underboss. But no, they didn't charge Cassie. They framed it as Cassie is the victim here in this story. So the prosecution didn't use that audio. The defense did, to show that Cassie is not some innocent bystander. She's not some innocent victim. She could get down and dirty. Now, guys, I know people don't want to hear this. They don't want to hear it because they've been told that Diddy is this mastermind. Diddy is John Gotti. Well, then, if Diddy is John Gotti, y'all just heard Sammy the Bull Gavano on that audio, which is Cassie Ventura. Hit that like button, guys. Hit that like button. He freed the diddler. Like I said, Ringo TV reactions, he called it. Ringo TV wasn't buying this. Ringo TV said he's not guilty, and now it took me some time because, like, I said, let me give the prosecution a chance to prove their case. You know what I'm saying? Fred Flintstone, that is not true. He has not been found guilty on charge 2 to 5. You gotta leave Tisa Tells alone, bro. You gotta stay off of Nancy Grace. They have a verdict for charges 2 to 5. He has not been found guilty yet, and I just explained why he might have been found not guilty on charges 2 to 5. Now, more than likely, they found him guilty on the Mann Act. I'm not, but not guilty on the sex trafficking. But the way it stands right now, in my opinion, it's more likely that he's not guilty on any of those other charges, more than he is guilty on all of the other charges. But if I had to guess, like I said, I'd say guilty on the Mann Act, which carries a maximum of up to 10 years. The judge could say, time served, you've never been convicted before of something. He could just give him time served and some probation, whatever. Right? Since he would be a first-time offender. He's been arrested before, but he wasn't convicted before, right? So first-time offender, let's go ahead and just give him a time served. Now, this is not the things people want to hear. People want to be in a safe space at Tisa Tells channel. You know what I'm saying? Listen, if I did the calculations, I felt that hung jury means those other 4 means guilty, I'd gladly say, oh, Diddy is done. That'd be a big headline. Diddy go on prison, 15 years to life. I would gladly put that up there. That'll give you a lot of views too. That'll give you a lot of views. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not seeing it like that. I'm just calling it like I'm seeing it, guys. It makes way more sense that he's not guilty on those other charges than guilty. Because like I said, if he's guilty on all the 4, why are they taking as much time on a hung jury or on a RICO? Like I said, you already exposed the man, 15 years. You don't need, for the RICO, you don't need the sex trafficking. You don't need the Mann Act engaging in prostitution across state lines. You could get him on arson and the other stuff under the predicates of the RICO. The distribution of drugs, right? Because they want to say him taking personal drugs and handing them over to party goers, that's distribution. So that's 2 right there. You could say guilty on the arson, distribution of drugs, extorting Cassie's mother, and the bribery. That's 4 options right there. And they are not agreeing. They are not coming to an agreement on that. They could find him guilty of RICO racketeering without even including the sex trafficking and the Mann Act. So technically, he could be found not guilty of that, and they could still be deliberating on a RICO. Do y'all not understand what's going on? He could be found not guilty right now on those other 4 charges. The 2 charges of sex trafficking, Jane and Cassie. Those are 2 separate charges, but both sex trafficking. And not guilty of the 2 charges of the prostitution with those the sex workers, and they can still be trying to hash out the RICO racketeering to see if he firebombed Kid Cudi car, to see if he extorted Cassie's mom, to see if he did the bribery. And there was another one. I keep losing focus. There was another one, the distribution of drugs. But I bet you people want to just shut their ear. You know, they want to cover their ears. They do not want to hear anything that says Diddy might be walking. They don't want to hear anything that says Diddy might be walking. I'm telling you, I just put it. I was drinking my beers. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, wait a minute. No, this. I think we're gonna have a. I think people gonna be in for a shock. Now I'm predicting he's gonna be found guilty of the Mann Act, but he could be found not guilty. Stephen Olay, salute, and they could just leave the RICO hung. You know what I'm saying? And I think this guy's prediction is gonna come true. This guy right here, because he's like, look, if they have a hard time proving a RICO, this is a lawyer and a former prosecutor. He said Diddy could actually walk.
John Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial will resume tomorrow as a third personal assistant is set to take the stand. Over the first couple of weeks, jury members heard explosive testimony detailing the alleged physical and emotional abuse Combs caused. Let's bring in David Gelman, former prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney. David, welcome.
Hey, Mike, good to be here.
So in week 2 of testimony, jurors heard from a dozen witnesses as prosecutors try to prove sex trafficking and racketeering. What are your expectations when court resumes tomorrow?
It's going to be really interesting tomorrow when Diddy's third or fourth assistant takes a stand, and she's going to actually corroborate Kid Cudi's testimony from last week, where he said that Diddy and another associate of his bombed his Porsche years ago at his house. Now, you have to have corroboration about that because nobody can put Diddy there. And in fact, nobody even can say Diddy's the actual one who did it. But if they can say that Diddy or an associate of his did it, then you may have a racketeering charge there. Because right now, as it stands, Mike, nothing, and I mean nothing, is sticking to Diddy.
Diddy's lawyers are trying to make the case that his escapades do not amount to federal crimes. How difficult is that argument?
I think they're doing a fantastic job, honestly. Look, everybody has said, and Diddy's lawyers even said it in their opening statement, Diddy is not a good guy. There's a lot of domestic violence that occurred between him and Cassie in their relationship. However, what we've heard so far from the testimony of Cassie and the other individuals does not amount to the federal charges that he's being charged with right now. I'm not going to say anything that we heard is very good because it's all horrific. However, the state or the government in this particular instance needs to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he conspired to racketeer, to sex traffic, and to promote prostitution. So far, they're falling way behind in this. And I know there's a lot more to go in this trial because they're saying it's going to be about 8 weeks. But the government really better step on the gas because they don't have a lot more time to go.
So the play seems to be maybe admit to a state crime that avoids prison time. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so. Look, again, you're hearing about all this domestic violence, but all of that has nothing to do with what Diddy is charged with. There's a possibility, and I'm saying a very strong possibility right now, that Diddy could walk, that he could be spending 4th of July at home having a barbecue.
Interesting. David Gelman, thank you very much for your analysis today.
Did y'all just hear that? Diddy could walk, guys. The unthinkable is about to happen. The unthinkable is about to happen, guys. Possibility. Oh, hit that like button. Jake White is in the building. Shout out to you. Jake White is in the building. Like I said, my guy Ringo TV Reactions, he called it. He called it. I say, you know what? Let me take a couple of weeks. But now I'm on board with my guy Ringo TV Reactions. You know what I'm saying? I'm on board with my guy Ringo TV Reactions. Yeah, guys, people are in denial. People are in denial. I think he is not guilty of sex trafficking, guys. I think they found him not guilty. And I'm giving him the guilty on the Mann Act, but there's an outside chance he's not even guilty in the Mann Act. And they're just like going back and forth on a RICO with the stuff that don't include the sex trafficking and the prostitution. And they're just trying to hammer out going back and forth on the and the people that want him to be guilty on the RICO is probably mad. They're like, no, he did drug distribute. He did give those drugs to other people. So that's one. And then the other one, arson, Kid Cudi. We believe Kid Cudi. or we believe he extorted Cassie's mother. That's extortion. That's a predicate for the RICO. You know. Yeah, or he did the bribery. They believe that was bribery he committed when he got the video back from the Intercontinental Hotel. So there's an outside possibility they didn't find him guilty on anything. But like I said, my guess, I'm going to be fair. My guess, my educated guess, it makes the most sense. Hung jury on the RICO. So I don't think they're going to come back and say, all right, not guilty on the RICO, or I don't think either side is going to be able to convince either side. So I say hung jury on the RICO is going to stay that way. And then not guilty on sex trafficking, on the 2 counts of sex trafficking, Jane and Cassie, and guilty on the 2 counts of the Mann Act, which carries a maximum sentence of up to 10 years. And the judge could say, you know what? Time served. And now there's a possibility he could give him 10 years. I don't think he would do that because Diddy hasn't been in jail before. He wasn't arrested before. I mean, he was arrested before, but he wasn't convicted of a crime before. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe he was convicted of a crime before, right? And then, like I said, the jurors could go home without a crazy guilty conscience that, you know, they set this guy up to go to jail for 15 years of life and enjoy their barbecue on the 4th of July. Diddy needs to be. You see what you're saying? When you saying he needs to be locked up for life, but can you give proof that he did what he did for him to be locked up for life, Rob? And if you have that proof, Rob, you should have hit up the prosecution and said you're going to go testify and go on the stand and deliver the evidence that would get Diddy locked up for life. You know, if you had that evidence, you see, I think they could have proved RICO racketeering if they would have used if the prosecution would have used Cassie and said that she was a co-conspirator, and it said that she was Diddy's underboss, because Cassie is going around threatening people's lives. So the prosecution should have used the audio clip of Cassie threatening to unalive that guy, and then they could have said, look, she should be found guilty and get 10 years to life also with Diddy, because they are running Bad Boy Records, which is a criminal enterprise threatening to kill people, because she's the only person on audio threatening to kill anybody, but she's not charged. How was that fair?
So you're telling me that he showed you a video of who kidnapped Cassie? Then that's not a real video, because he's never
in that position. You would have been naked. I'm just saying, if you
he's in the video.
I'm saying if I had a picture.
Is he in the video?
Yeah, but I'm saying if I had a picture.
Then that's not me.
But I'm just saying, look, hold on. You have to understand. If I had a picture of you naked.
If there's a picture of me naked, that's completely different than a video of me.
So
the video that he showed you, he's in it.
Yeah, we can try to pull it.
How are you gonna? Oh no, your phones are right here.
Try to pull it. You can try to pull it. You can try to pull it.
On the internet?
Yeah, you can try to pull it.
Where?
I'm not gonna lie to you.
Okay, which phone?
You can bring
the Samsung?
Yeah, you can bring it.
So you have it or you don't have it? Can you just be clear with me? Do you have it?
I saw it and I don't want to ever see it again.
I know you don't, but I want to see it.
Yeah, but I don't want to see it, bro.
Yeah, you don't have to see it, but it's my life and I'll kill you.
Yeah, but
I will kill you if you don't show me right now. I will kill you and I will hide you and I will cut you up and put you in the dirt right now. Pull it up. If you have it, pull that up. Because if not, I'm going to kill you and then he's going to kill you again. So just do it. Pull that up right now.
Oh man, like I said, if the feds would have charged Cassie as Diddy's underboss, since they want to play these games and talk about a RICO racketeering conspiracy and Bad Boy Records is like the mafia, well then Cassie should have been arrested and charged and put as Diddy's underboss. Now I know it doesn't fit the narrative. That's why the prosecutors, they knew about this audio, they didn't play it because it would hurt their victim status of Cassie. Look at Donnell Kanisha said she's a victim of coercive control. It didn't sound like that inside that audio. She's putting out hits on people. Now, if that was Diddy on that audio, y'all be like, oh, guilty. Yeah, you see how that works? But the Diddy's defense team, they put that out there in front of those 12 jurors. Man, you see, if they would have they would have had Diddy. They would have had him. If they would have said, Cassie, you're under arrest for making threats to kill people, and you are working at Bad Boy Records, which is a criminal organization. You are Diddy's underboss. You are the Sammy the Bull Gravano to John Gotti, which is Diddy. People don't want to hear the truth. People want to stick to their narratives. People I could be a propaganda type channel. I could be a propagandist. I can come up here and twist and turn the narrative. I could go toe to toe with any of those other channels that get a lot of views and create narratives, false narratives to misinform the people. I can do the same thing. I could go toe to toe with anybody over here. I can make Diddy sound like the most guilty person on the planet if I really wanted to over here. I can do the same thing those other people doing. I can make him seem guilty as hell. But I refuse not to go that route. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, she didn't sound like she was a victim. She did not sound like she's the victim in that audio. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Anybody new to the channel? You know? Yeah, I seen that Ringo said he got inside information, is not guilty, charged, NYC gonna be on fire. Woo! Yeah, I seen that. Ringo said I seen that. Man. Oh, man. Hit that like button, guys. Hit that like button. Cassie liked the lifestyle. Yeah. Cassie liked she became a gangster, threatening to kill people. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. Shout out to Chase is in the building. Viral industry says, is that right? He still has to face the Tupac case he's done. Hey, like I said, if you got information on the Tupac case, take it down to your nearest police station and give the evidence, and maybe they'll open up a case on that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and until then, I'm focusing on this trial, this case right here. Hit that like button, guys. First time is a whopper, life sentence. Hit that like button. Like I said, I went through everything, and I said it's more than likely he's not guilty on those other 4 acts, guys, charges. The feds went way overboard in the case, and I think that's going to be their downfall. When you overcharge people, you sometimes get a not guilty. Like I used the example of the murder. If a guy accidentally hit somebody with their car because they were driving reckless, and you charge them with first-degree murder, you might get a not guilty. It's best to charge them with manslaughter, something like that. Vehicular manslaughter, or maybe a second-degree murder. If you go for the first-degree murder, which means intent that he killed that person with the car, you might get a not guilty verdict by the jurors because you overcharged. You charge him with something that the jurors could feel comfortable finding him guilty on. You know what I'm saying? Now, the Mann Act, I still think that's extreme because that's just prostitution and stuff. In which, you know how I feel about that. That shouldn't even be a crime in the United States, but whatever. I think that's the more likely charge for the jury to feel comfortable finding him guilty with. The minimum sentencing is not that much. It's only up to 10 years. The judge could find him, could sentence him to 1 year, probate, all the way up to 10 years. Or he could just do time served. And the jury could be like, well, we didn't say he's not guilty of anything. We found him guilty of something. Now it's up to the judge. If the judge want to give him 10 years in prison, so be it. If the judge want to just give him time served, hey, we did our job. We didn't let him walk free, scot free. That the judge let him walk scot free by sentencing him to only time served. The jury, we did our part, and then they could go make money and do those interviews and tell the people and make money. Tell CNN and all these other stations, go on YouTube and tell the reason why they didn't find him guilty of the RICO, why they didn't find him guilty of the sex trafficking, because those are the two big ones. Those have 15 years to life. Well, sex trafficking and the RICO is 10 years to life. Minimums. And like I was saying, if he is already found guilty of the sex trafficking and the Mann Act, then why are they fighting over the RICO at that point? Because you've already exposed this man to 15 years to life. You've already doomed him to 15 years to life by the judge. So why are y'all going extra hard and hanging the jury over the RICO at that point? Grown man. Hey, you said grown man reporting on Diddy? Well, you're a grown man watching a grown man report on Diddy, which is worse. You seen the thumbnail, and it's what's this? It's 2:00 in the morning East Coast time. You seen the thumbnail. Look at my pretty face on the cover. I'm blowing you a kiss too. And it says Diddy verdict prediction, not guilty, RICO, and sex trafficking. You seen the title, you seen the headline, and you as a grown man coming in here and commenting at this time in the morning on another grown man talking about Diddy. I mean, make it make sense. Hit that like button, guys. Max says just sharing him is that. Just sharing him is that. Like I said, they could find him RICO on the drug distribution, the arson, the bribery, and the extortion. They do not need the Mann Act or the sex trafficking. They could have found him not guilty. Am I not making sense to you guys? They could have already found him not guilty of both the sex trafficking and the Mann Act charges. Those are 4 charges combined, right? And still be trying to hash out the RICO without, because people keep saying, well, you know, they must have already found them guilty on those other charges. Well, if they found them guilty of the other charges, that would mean they would have the sex trafficking predicate, and they would have the prostitution across state lines predicate. That's the only 2 they would need to find them guilty of the RICO, racketeering. You get what I'm saying? Now, only thing is that maybe some of the jurors don't feel it was a criminal organization, so why find them guilty of the RICO, right? But then again, I'm like, why would they be fighting so hard against it when you already found them guilty of the other stuff? Why would you care at that point, really? Because, like I said, if you already found them guilty of the other 2, and now you're fighting all hard, days and days for the RICO racketeering, and you already exposed this man to 15 years in prison because you found them guilty already of the other 4. I mean, it could be plausible. It could be plausible. Like I said, I'm putting out all the scenarios, but I think what I said, it makes the most sense. Not guilty of sex trafficking, hung jury on the RICO, and the and guilty on the Mann Act. And like I said, they could go home and I think that'll be the for the jurors, all the pressure they have on them. This is a huge case. That'll satisfy a lot of people, that type of verdict. It won't satisfy the feds 100%, but people could say, well, at least he was guilty of something. At least they didn't find him outright not guilty of anything. But like I said, this hung jury thing, like I said, it's more likely that he is found not guilty of those 4 charges than he is, like people are trying to say he is guilty of those other charges. If you look down into it, like I explained it, and I am no legal expert, I just use common sense. How you doing, Melissa? I'm concerned they found him guilty on the 4th and are hesitant to find him guilty on the 5th. But like I was saying, Melissa, why not find him guilty on the 5th? If you already found him guilty on the 4th, what's the point? What's the difference at that point? He already, he might get life in prison for the other ones. You know what I'm saying? At that point, so why fight all hard to and why be so mad? They said the jurors is kind of mad that they were telling him to go back in there and fight and come back tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, well, I would just say, well, what's so hard to find him guilty on a RICO racketeering if you already found them guilty on the sex trafficking? The sex trafficking is more of a minimum than a RICO racketeering. Sex trafficking is 15 years of life minimum. RICO is 10 years of life. You know what I'm saying? So if you already found them guilty on sex trafficking, then what's the big deal about finding him guilty on RICO racketeering? That's what I'm saying. I think he's not guilty on the sex trafficking. People are reading this way wrong. I think he is not guilty on the sex trafficking, and maybe an outside chance he's not guilty on the Mann Act. But I'm going to give him the guilty on the Mann Act because I don't see the jurors with all this pressure not finding him guilty on something, because there's a lot of pressure on the jury. I don't think they want to bite on a RICO because they know the RICO was a minimum of 10 years. 10 years of life. I think some jurors don't want to expose him to being possibly getting a life sentence. You know what that's called? Jury nullification. And I've been talking about jury nullification for a couple of weeks now. If he owned the porn site, the sex trafficking would have been legal. Yeah. Yeah. Michael Jordan, the GOAT. So what happens if they remain hung on RICO? What happens is either the judge could throw that out, the prosecution could drop it, the prosecution can retry him on the RICO, right? They can retry it, or they can work out a plea deal. Those are the options on a hung RICO. Or they could just, like I said, throw it out. They could just say, drop it. We'll just go with the other 4 verdicts, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And remember, guys, the judge said, all right, go home. But the jury said they want to go home, but they went home. They could have stayed past 5, but they went home. They didn't actually, I don't think they didn't hand in a verdict. The judge don't know what the verdict is right now for those other charges. They can conceivably go home, go to sleep. You know, they're not supposed to be talking about the case. They're not supposed to be looking at social media about the case, but you know they are. They can come back to the court tomorrow and change their minds on the verdicts they already agreed to. They didn't hand the verdicts to the judge, guys. I heard some lawyers say that today. They can go home, go back in there. If they didn't sign the verdict, they could go back in there and change their mind if the verdict is not signed. I mean, that's what one legal guy said. I don't. I honestly believe they don't want to find him. Some of the jurors don't want to find him guilty on RICO because that exposes him to a minimum of 10 years of life. And if they didn't find him guilty on the sex trafficking, which is the biggest one, 15 years of life, some of them probably just don't want to find him guilty of the RICO. Some of those jurors just don't want to give Diddy 10 or 15 years of life in prison. They don't want to expose him to it. But they probably would expose him to the Mann Act, which is time served up to 10 years in jail, in prison. I think they'll be able to live more with that. Me too. If I was on the jury, I would be more able to live with that for these type of charges. All right. You killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're getting, all right, if you say you didn't like him beating up Cassie, well, you're putting it into the judge's hands. Look, I'm giving you the Mann Act. Now, it's up to the judge. He could find him guilty of up to 10 years. I did my part. So the judge, he could get revenge for Cassie for the beatdown video. I did my job as a juror. I'm not giving Diddy, because even domestic violence people, they don't get life in prison unless they kill their wife, right? Or they kill their girlfriend. So why am I giving Diddy 15 years of life for domestic violence? So you know what? I'm going to do everybody a favor. I'm going to find them guilty of the Mann Act. We're going to come together, find them guilty of the Mann Act. The judge can do whatever you want with the sentencing up to 10 years. I can live with that as a juror. As a juror, I can't live with the 15 years to life for the sex trafficking. I think it's bogus. I don't think Jane or Cassie was sex trafficked. And the in a RICO is still 10 years to life. I don't want it. What if the judge come back and say life? I don't want to be responsible for that as a juror. I'm not helping the government out in that aspect. But what I am doing, we getting revenge for Cassie for getting beat up, even though she don't deserve it. She don't need it. She don't need revenge because she got $20 million for her troubles. She really got $30 million. She got $20 million from P. Diddy and $10 million from the hotel. But still, okay. But if you still want Diddy to have some punishment, all right, I'm doing my job. Guilty of the Mann Act. And now it's just on the judge. He can do anywhere from time served up to 10 years. As a juror, I did my part. I'm going to home. I'm going to celebrate 4th of July. I'm going to put some hamburgers on the grill. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to put some spare ribs on the grill. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think he should walk, says Melissa. Robert Hinton says guilty. Raze, Diddy belongs in a cell with Bubba for life. Hey, Tro Star. Hey, like I said, y'all still might get your wish. I'm just giving my prediction. I honestly believe he is not guilty on sex trafficking. That's the biggest one. That's the 15 years of life, and they are having trouble with the RICO racketeering. Like I said, I'm gonna say it's 70-30. He's guilty on the Mann Act. 70% he's guilty on the Mann Act. I'm going to leave 30% open that he's not guilty on the Mann Act. Diddy can actually walk, guys. Diddy can actually walk. I'm telling you, man. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm just looking at everything and my calculations. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just thinking that is a big possibility he could walk. Guilty of domestic violence, not a federal RICO case. Nope. And that's the thing, guys. The prosecution, basically, they delivered this federal RICO case showing more evidence of domestic violence than anything. Basically, the evidence they were showing should have been shown in a classic domestic violence case. A classic assault case. That's the bulk of their physical evidence. So they were treating this as a domestic violence case, but he is not charged with domestic violence. People could not grasp what I was saying. People could not grasp, but shout out to Sean G. What he was saying, the podcast was so, and others. My guy Uda on the go. You know what I mean? They wasn't grasping what Diddy's lawyers were saying. Look, yeah, he's guilty. He's guilty of domestic violence. Diddy would plead guilty of domestic violence if he was charged with it. But this is not about domestic violence. And people kept saying, oh, but. And the federal government, they played this, right? Kept showing that video and this and that. They made it all about him beating up people, beating up Cassie. They made it about physical assault, domestic violence. That's domestic stuff. That is not federal RICO racketeering stuff. And I was saying they overreached. And for that, they are in deep trouble with this jury. Well, he proved that he wasn't in the same state when Brianna said he dangled her off the 17th floor balcony inside of a hotel out there inside LA. He was in New York. He got receipts that he was in New York on that date for that whole week. So he couldn't have dangled Brianna off of that 17th floor balcony because he was in New York. First he was in Jersey, then he came to New York at the Trump Tower, the Trump Hotel. Rob, he's holding on hope. He's not walking. Well, hey. Yeah. Oh, man. Tisa tells Nancy Grace, Gene Deal, I want to see the look on their faces when Diddy is free. Hey, listen, this is a prediction. And I'm not saying it's written in stone, but I'm giving my educated guess on what's going to happen. And like I said, if he's found guilty on all these charges, I'm coming back live. More than likely, I'm going to go live from the court tomorrow because I think there's going to be a verdict tomorrow. You know, I mean, there is a verdict already, but I think they're going to release. I mean, I don't know. They might stay hung on that RICO. It seems like nobody wants to budge on that RICO. The people say he's not guilty of RICO is not going to come over and say he's guilty on RICO and vice versa. Hey, I'm just giving y'all my educated guess. I'm no legal expert at all. Y'all can look at more so my guy Lionel Legal for legal advice because Lionel Legal is a real lawyer, and he said pretty much the same thing I was saying.
I recognize the fact that what I'm saying is incredibly redundant, and I know you've heard me for the millionth time, and I'm going to say it for the millionth time because I think it's important and critical that everybody understands what this is. There is no way that if there exists any kind of a law, any kind of criminal justice system, that Diddy should be found guilty of anything. And this may confound you, it may bother you, crazy, because he's not guilty of what they charged him with in federal court. You don't throw these terms around. You don't say things like trafficking and racketeering in violation of the Mann Act and the white slavery statute because a couple of people were involved in what appeared to be basically a big house party and orgy run amok. If you go through this, if you go through the facts of this, that's what's important. And that's what I've been talking and saying. The idea of a racketeering conspiracy is ridiculous. This was no enterprise. This was not the mafia. This was not the Colombos or the Lucchese's. This was a celebrity entourage, a group, a posse. Notice I spelled it P-O-S-S-E. There is no relatedness. There was no enterprise. There is the relatedness component of this, where you can say that the alleged acts and the drugs and the sex and the money and all of that stuff were isolated incidents, not a part of a coordinated plan. And second of all, there's no continuity. No relatedness, no continuity. The incidents were episodic, chaotic, abusive to be sure, but not organized.
Man, you gotta subscribe to Lionel Legal channel. You gotta subscribe to Lionel Legal channel, guys. He laid it all out. That's a lawyer right there. Y'all don't want to listen to Raze and my common sense opinions. You gotta listen to the professional. You know what I'm saying? You know, you gotta listen to the professional, Lionel Legal. You know what I mean? You don't gotta listen to Raze, but you can listen to the professional. You know what I mean? Like I said, I know people are mad, big sad. People are looking. People are looking like the people that want to find them guilty so bad. There is basically a hung jury on the RICO. That's the second biggest charge, next to the sex trafficking, because the sex trafficking is a minimum of 15 years to life. There is a mother effing hung jury on the RICO racketeering when everybody was telling me they proved that already. There's no way they're not gonna find them guilty on that stuff. And it's a hung jury, but the people that still want to have Diddy be guilty so bad is twisting and turning, finding a way for this to be bad news for Diddy. Are you guys nuts? I mean, like I said, anything can happen, but my calculations is that he's more than likely not guilty of those other charges. then he is guilty. Like I said, I'm giving you guys the Mann Act. Because, like I said, I don't believe all of the jury is not going to, it's just going to let him walk and not get any time.
Chaotic. Abusive, to be sure, but not organized. Not systemic. No one was employed in a criminal network. Friends and girlfriends and staff all voluntarily were present in the orbit, the gravitational pull of fame and excess. And that's the way that is. Simple. Simple. A house party, an orgy, isn't a racketeering enterprise. And to suggest that this was sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion is an abomination to the people who have been, in fact, actually involved in that. I would be furious if I was a practitioner. I would be furious. Consent, intent, whatever you want to call it, these were adult relationships at best. Messy, toxic, even manipulative, but they were not, were not trafficking. Agency and participation is another one. Agency as in being an agent. The victims, the putative victims, remained in relationships. They took money and accepted gifts and traveled by choice. No commercial sex arrangement, forced or brokered, was there. It was intimate. It wasn't transactional. It was in the legal sense. Force, fraud, coercion. This is the thing. Did they ever call the police? Were there threats or just power imbalances? Intimidation versus a threat. Did people feel like they couldn't say no based upon the power differential?
Check out Lionel Legal, guys. Lionel Legal.
Threat. Did people feel like they couldn't say no based upon the power differential? Did the prosecution prove intent to exploit? There was seduction, to be sure, but not sex trafficking. This is what is critical. And as far as transportation for prostitution, the white slavery statute, the Mann Act violation, again, act or definition. No one was trafficked across state lines for prostitution. There was a private relationship, not a pimping. This wasn't assignation and all these other great common law crimes. You have to look at the definition of prostitution. Was sex offered for money, or was it part of a consensual, romantic, celebrity lifestyle? No. This is the most important thing. Did the alleged victims, did they choose to travel for parties and events and relationships? Were they told to perform for pay? The prosecution has got to prove that Diddy intended to have someone cross state lines for illegal sex work. Period. End of discussion. And proving that beyond a reasonable doubt and beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt within a degree of moral certainty is very tough, to say the least. They travel for this is a defense spectacle. I have no earthly idea what motivated the Biden administration to involve themselves in this. I have no earthly idea whatever motivated them in the least to even pursue this. What were they thinking? What was the purpose of this? What? No one knows. No one can figure this thing out. Nobody can. I can't. I'm wondering why. What was the purpose of this? Why did you do this? What were you trying to accomplish? Why? Why? What was the purpose of this? Why did you do this? What were you trying to accomplish? Why? What was the point? We don't know. This happens all the time. This was Hugh Hefner, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin. This has been going on. They do football games, and you know, I've asked this question. There's about like 2,000 to 3,000 maybe total professional athletes in baseball, football, basketball in the United States, and of that group, of those folks, of that team, of that group, there are probably more independent groups negotiating parties and passels and hordes and orgies of women that you can imagine all the time. It's been going on since day one, and that's not right. It's immoral, fine, but it's not federal, and it's not. And if there is a God, he must be acquitted, because we cannot live in a system that would allow somebody to be, in essence, violated, to be, what am I trying to say, to be charged with this, to be prosecuted, merely because we don't like his sexual activities. Federal trafficking, think children, think people padlocked in trailers and tractor trailers and brought and transported and flown, and oh my God. He must be acquitted. If that jury is even 10% efficient, they've got to throw this out. And if by some stretch of the imagination he's found guilty of this, then they'll get him on appeal. They'll reverse it on appeal. This is horrible.
Yeah, y'all don't have to listen to me. Y'all can listen to Lionel Legal. Check out his channel, man. I'm telling you guys, from my calculations, Diddy is going to be found not guilty of the sex trafficking, which carries a minimum of 15 years, and those 2 counts. He is going to be found guilty of either 1 count of the Mann Act or both counts of the Mann Act, engaging in prostitution across state lines, which has a maximum of up to 10 years, but the judge could give him a time served. I think that's the route the jury is going to go, and they are still trying to hash out the RICO. They do not need the sex stuff for the RICO. They need just the arson for the predicates for the RICO. They can use the arson, which Kid Cudi car. They can use the bribery, the video from the Intercontinental Hotel, the $100,000. They can use, what's the other thing they can use? They can use the extortion, $20,000, Cassie's mother, right? The blackmail for the freak off, and they can use the drug distribution. They do not need to use the Mann Act or the sex trafficking. That's why I'm saying I believe they found them not guilty on the sex trafficking, at least. I'm gonna give them the guilty on the Mann Act. Hell, I might say I can say it's more than likely not guilty on both of those. More than guilty on both of those, like people are trying to say. But anyway, I'm gonna give them the guilty on the Mann Act. I'm gonna give them not guilty on the sex trafficking, 15 years to life. And they're trying to hash out this RICO racketeering. That's why the people that found not guilty on the sex trafficking is fighting so hard on the RICO. Because like I said, if they found them guilty on those other charges already, they already doomed him to 15 years to life in prison anyway. So why fight so hard against finding him guilty on the RICO racketeering at that point? So I'm just using my common sense. The jury is supposed to go by the facts of the case and not judge a case on their own personal feelings. That is not how it's supposed to go straight up. Yeah, Ivan Curry, but it is what it is. If you go to the definition of jury nullification, you would see for yourself that the jury do have a right to say not guilty on their own feelings of the law. It's called jury nullification. I've been talking about that for 2 weeks now. And jury nullification causes mistrials. It causes, you know what I'm saying? Because some of them could be like, look, drug distribution is really just your person who used drugs and you hand it over to somebody. So that's going to set this guy up for at least 10 years to life in prison. I'm not playing that game. So if I'm on that jury, I'm practicing jury nullification. I'm saying not guilty. Let all these other people say guilty. I'm holding this up. I'm not putting that man in prison for 10 years to life for that. It is what it is. They can do whatever they want. I mean, or else they wouldn't have juries. They would just let the judge decide, because the judge knows the law by the letter of the law, and the judge would find them guilty in all counts. If you want to go by the code, I still would think that the judge would say, did not this little punk judge, this punk judge is for the prosecution. So, but any real judge should have just threw this case out in the beginning, saying this is not a federal RICO racketeering. How dare the feds, why are they even stretching this to bring this to court? It's an embarrassment. But here we are anyway. Why is he still locked up? Because he has to listen to the verdict. With so many people that's in here that's big mad and big sad. This is not Tisa Tell's propaganda to put out there, propaganda that he is guilty for those things when I'm not seeing it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just not seeing it. The math ain't mathing. I gave you the reason at the beginning why I feel he's going to be found not guilty of the sex trafficking and 70 to 30% guilty of the Mann Act, which only goes up to 10 years sentence. The judge can have some leeway with that and just sentence him to time served. And I guess that RICO is going to stay hung jury. I don't think those people want to expose them to the people that don't want to find him guilty of the RICO. They don't want to expose that man to 10 years of life in prison. They are human, guys. They are human. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I can come up here and lie to you guys and say Diddy is done, Diddy is guilty, and get all the likes and stuff. You know what I'm saying? I could get the Tisa Tells crowd. I could get all the other haters crowd in here to say, yeah, go Raze, get him Raze, get him Raze, get him Raze. Diddy is done. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not gonna do that because that'll make me look like fake. I look like a fake. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to come off as looking like a fake. You know what I'm saying? And and the thing is, and shout out to us, Haseen, and everybody knew. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. And the thing is, guys, now there is the Trump card, right? Donald Trump. And this is what Trump had to say about possibly giving a pardon in the event that Diddy is convicted.
And this is more of a big six question, but back when you listened to The Apprentice, you mentioned once in 2012 that Diddy was a good friend of yours back then. He has since found himself in some very serious legal trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
Would you ever consider pardoning him?
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter, but nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it. I know they're thinking about it. I think some people have been very close to asking. First of all, I'd look at what's happening, and I haven't been watching it too closely, although it's certainly getting a lot of coverage. I haven't seen him. I haven't spoken to him in years. He used to really like me a lot, but I think when I ran for politics, that relationship busted up. From what I read, I don't know. He didn't tell me that, but I'd read some little bit nasty statements in the paper all of a sudden. You know, it's different. You become a much different person when you run for politics and you do what's right. I could do other things, and I'm sure he'd like me, and I'm sure other people would like me, but it wouldn't be as good for our country. As we said, our country's doing really well because of what we're doing. So it's not a popularity contest. So, I don't know. I would certainly look at the facts. If I think somebody was mistreated, whether they like me or don't like me, it wouldn't have any impact on me.
Mr. President,
And that was the President Donald Trump, giving the answer. So it's interesting. It's wonderful travels with the $4.99 donation to the Razer Fund. Shout out to you, bro. He will beat the RICO, if not now, definitely at appeals. There was no income generated from the freak off, which is the basis of the RICO. But they're trying to say, he don't have to make a profit and this and that. And that's why some of the jury is like, wait a minute, what kind of law is this? And some of the jury is practicing jury nullification. I've been telling you guys about jury nullification. I was saying if I was on that jury, I would do it and just say not guilty on the basis of jury nullification. I do not agree with the law. And that was the note to the judge. You're like, yo, a juror number 25 is not following the instructions. I'm not following the letter of the judge's instructions. There's no way. I'm not giving Diddy 10 years to life for distribution when it was personal use between him and his crackhead friends. He didn't sell it. He didn't make a profit. You are not going to get me to buy. I don't care what it says on the books. I'm practicing jury nullification, and that's exactly what those jurors are doing right now. Guilty for having pleasure, says Michael Jordan. I was always taught to be a critical thinker. You don't gotta follow the crowd. Yeah, I don't gotta follow the crowd at all. That's why I looked at everything, the predicates. I looked at the hung jury, and I'm like, wait a minute. If they don't need sex trafficking in the Mann Act, right? They don't need that, so they could have found them not guilty. Now, if they found them guilty already of the sex trafficking, right, unanimously, and if they found them guilty of the Mann Act, well, that's the two predicates right there to find them guilty of the RICO. That's the sex trafficking, and they got the engaging in prostitution across state lines. That's two predicates for the RICO. Guilty. Then, if they all was unanimous in that, those two already, and those charges, those 4 charges, why not find them guilty of the RICO? Now, maybe here's an outside chance, like I said earlier. Maybe they feel that he's guilty of those other things by himself, and it wasn't a criminal organization. So some people was like, nah, they're gonna find him guilty of the RICO racketeering, right? Because they don't think Bad Boy Records is a criminal organization, and the charges should not have been brought forth, right? Which that is a possibility. But my only issue with that theory is, which is a good theory, but my issue with that theory is, then why are they fighting so hard? If you already found them guilty of the sex trafficking, which exposes him, that's the worst charge, 15 years minimum to life. You already exposed him. The Mann Act, up to 10 years. You already exposed them. You already doomed them to that. The RICO racketeering would be a minimum of 10 years to life. Well, if you already exposed him to getting 15 years to life anyway, all right, I can see a little in the beginning. You say, all right, not guilty of the RICO racketeering, but when the push comes to shove, why even fight it for a few more days? If you already exposed that man to 15 years of life already, why are you going so hard to fight against the RICO racketeering? Just find him guilty of the RICO racketeering then. If you had the courage to find him guilty anyway and expose that man to 15 years of life anyway, why fight so hard for the RICO racketeering? Why fight so hard against it? That's my only, so that's my theory. I'm sticking with it. Yeah, Trump, good move. Raymond Rivera, salute to you. He's going down. Hit that like button, guys. It doesn't matter if he did that to my daughter. If I had a daughter, you got to leave family out of it. Listen, somebody could do somebody could even just curse your daughter out, and you could want to go run up on him and end that man's life for just cursing your daughter out. So there's things that you won't tolerate people doing to your family, right? And you could go overboard and really hurt a person for even just words, doing something to your daughter or something like that, right? And you can get in trouble for that. And then, some people will understand why you did it, but then the law won't. They'll still lock you up, right? Yeah. If that was your daughter, a family member, and you found them on a video beating her up like that, yeah, you would want to put hands on Diddy, right? You would want to put hands on him. But that has nothing to do with the case, bro. I told you, if he was charged with abusing Cassie, I would find him guilty. He would say he would have pled guilty. He still wouldn't have been facing 15 years of life. Now, if that was my daughter, I would want him to get 15 years of life for laying hands on my daughter, right? But that's family. I'm coming at it from a family mindset, not from a neutral mindset in that aspect. So anybody, if that was your daughter, yeah, you would want to lay hands on them. Like I said, You would want to lay hands on somebody for spitting on your daughter or even cursing out your daughter. You might want to go to jail. You might actually kill that person. So you got to leave family out of it. She's not my family. They're not my family. You know what I'm saying? Domestic violence cases don't get 15 years to life. As a juror, I'm giving you the Mann Act. I'm saying, all right, we find him guilty of the Mann Act. Now it's up to the judge. If the judge want to give him 10 years, let him get 10 years. If the judge want to give him time served, that's on the judge. I washed my hands of it. I gave them a chance to sentence Diddy to like a year to 10 years to get revenge for Cassie. I did my part. Now I want to go home. I want to make my franks. I want to make my hamburgers, my ribs on the grill, and celebrate the 4th of July. Hit that like button. Anybody new, subscribe to the channel, guys. All the new subscribers. We will be live tomorrow or later on today. Live from the courthouse. Unless the verdict comes in very, very early. We'll see. I ain't gonna be at the courthouse like 9 o'clock. They start at 9 o'clock, but you know, I'm gonna give them some time to deliberate. Then I hop on down there and go live. In anticipation of a verdict, which they, like I said, they have the 4 verdicts. We'll see if they finish up with this hung jury verdict for the RICO. What about Kim Porter? Well, charge him for Kim Porter. You know, if you got evidence about Kim Porter, take it to your nearest police station and say, open up this case. I'll be all for it, but you gotta come with evidence. You gotta come with evidence. And like I said, if you get them for state charges on the assault or S assault, I'll be all for it. And I would look at the evidence and I'll cover it. Yeah, that's the agreement. That's the victim. Jane is the victim, boy. Woo, Jane is the victim. That Jane, oh man. That judge is not fair. Yeah, that judge is a former prosecutor, Rose. And he's a new judge. He's only been on the bench for 2 years. So he is very biased towards the prosecution because he has a prosecution mindset. You know what I'm saying? He hasn't been a judge long enough to really be 100% neutral. He still has that prosecution mindset. You know what I'm saying? He'll pretend that he's neutral, but he's not. You could tell. But we'll see. If he is found guilty in the Mann Act and not the other stuff, would the judge give him the maximum sentence of 10 years? Now, other legal scholars are saying that no, the judge is not going to do that because it'll be his first time being convicted. And normally they don't do that. They give them the minimum, which would be probably a year, which means time served. We will see. We will see, Ray. We will see. Let's later on today on the East Coast. We'll see tomorrow. We will see. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be high drama. I gave you guys my theory on what's gonna happen. We'll see if it plays out. You know what I'm saying? We'll see if it plays out. You know, we'll see if it plays out. I'm just giving my. This is for entertainment purposes only. You know what I'm saying? You know. Maybe Tisa tells us right. Maybe he will be found guilty on all the charges. And I'll come back and say, well, the jury, the jury seen it different than Raze. You know what I'm saying? And they found them guilty. Diddy is finally done. This is my prediction, Isaac. It says, look at the screen, Isaac. Diddy verdict prediction. Not guilty, RICO and sex trafficking. And I gave my reasons why. Is looking that way that he's going to be found not guilty on the sex trafficking, 30% guilty on the Mann Act, and a hung jury, or outright not guilty on a RICO. I think I'm gonna stick with the hung jury on a RICO racketeering. I don't think any side is gonna budge on that, and he'll probably more than likely just do time served, unless the judge just want to be just mean-spirited or get revenge for Cassie and say 10 years in prison, because to make up for the jury not finding him guilty on the stuff that the prosecution wanted. Like I said, this judge is a former prosecutor. But like I said, don't listen to those other YouTubers talk about it's more than likely he's found guilty on his other stuff because of the hung jury for the RICO. Nope. My calculations say he is more than likely not guilty of sex trafficking and the Mann Act, more than actually guilty of those charges. If you just look at the charges, look at the predicates that's still available to find him guilty of the RICO racketeering, they do not need to find him guilty on sex trafficking and the Mann Act for them to still be deliberating and possibly find them guilty on the RICO racketeering. There's still arson they can use, because they just need two predicates for the RICO racket. They can find him guilty. They could say, all right, he used arson, cut his car. They could say bribery, with the hotel, with the video getting a hotel, the $100,000. They can say extortion and bribery. Well, not extortion and not bribery, but extortion. Well, bribery for the hotel video, but extortion for the $20,000 that was sent by Cassie's mom, and drug distribution. So technically, they can find them not guilty on the sex trafficking in the Mann Act, right? But still be like debating whether or not they should find them guilty on a RICO racketeering, which is a minimum of 10 years. They do not need sex trafficking in the Mann Act, because if they found them unanimously guilty of the sex trafficking in the Mann Act, which is prostitution across state lines, those are two predicates right there already. That's enough to find him guilty of the RICO racketeering, but they're not finding him guilty of the RICO racketeering. There's some arguments. So I believe there's more than likely that he's found not guilty on the sex trafficking in the Mann Act, because they don't need those. And there's still some hang up on whether or not he did the arson, the bribery, extortion, on the distribution of the drugs. But like I said, I'm going to give them the guilty verdict for the Mann Act. I don't think they're just going to let him walk without a guilty verdict. But the evidence shows, technically, that there's more of a possibility of him being acquitted on both the Mann Act and the sex trafficking, more than what these other YouTubers are saying, the propaganda they're putting out there, that this means he's found guilty on those other charges. Nope. Hell no. It does not make any sense. It does not add up. Because if they found them guilty already on a sex trafficking in the Mann Act, why the hell would they be fighting so hard to not find them guilty on the RICO when you already exposed that man to 15 years to life in prison already? So why are you fighting so hard? Just find them guilty of RICO too at this point. Hit that like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel. I know some people that want to find them guilty. They want to be in their comfort. They want to say they want Raze and say, oh no, Diddy is done. Diddy, this is bad news for Diddy. Nope. Yeah, but unfortunately, I'm not able to find him guilty on that, Beth. He wasn't charged with that. He wasn't charged with assault. You know what I mean? He wasn't charged with the assault of Cassie, the domestic violence. He wasn't charged with that, Beth. Now, like I said, from the beginning of the trial, I said, well, maybe they would do a makeup charge on it. Like I said, 70 to 30% chance they find him guilty of the Mann Act, which carries a no minimum, but a maximum sentence of up to 10 years, right? They could split the baby and be like, all right, let's find him guilty on that. Let's let the judge figure out the sentencing and let's call it a day. We're not going to give this man 15 years of life, because basically that's what you're doing. Even though the jury is not the one that sentenced him, if they find him guilty on a RICO, you are basically sentencing that man as a juror to 10 years, at least 10 years of life, because the minimum the judge could give him is 10 years for the RICO racketeering. And the minimum the judge could give him, if you find him guilty of sex trafficking, either Jane or Cassie, is 15 years. So you're basically sentencing that man to 15 years in prison if you, as a juror, do decide to find him guilty of sex trafficking. And they know that. If you find him guilty in the Mann Act, now you can say, well, we found him guilty of something, of the prostitution, cross state lines. Now, judge is on the judge for him to sentence. The judge could say time served. He could say 1 year, 2 years, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that gives the jury an out. They can say, well, we did our job. We found him guilty of something. But some people just don't want to admit it. Some people just want to be like, no, life. Well, we'll see. I think I broke it down in layman's terms. If you're not being biased, I think you can really see where I'm coming from with my theory on this, of why there's more of a possibility he's not guilty of sex trafficking in the Mann Act, more than what, like I said, those other YouTubers is trying to put it out there that this must mean he is guilty. The math ain't mathing with that, bro. The math is not math. Like I said, I'm no legal expert, but I did enough research over the past couple of hours, and the math is not mathing. It's more than likely they found him not guilty. They found him not guilty of both sex trafficking and Mann Act, more than finding him guilty. He's staying in the pen. Okay, well, we'll see. He thought he was an adult business owner. He's gonna get all that. Well, we'll see. I'm gonna come back live. He said it, we shall see, guys. It's gonna be interesting. No, you mean did he touch you? Did he diddle you, Paul? For you to want that man to get 15 years of life, that means he diddled you. I'm giving you logical reasons why the jurors may have found him not guilty for sex trafficking and the Mann Act, and you coming up here saying this stuff. That means you are not looking at the evidence that I just put out there, the logical evidence that the jurors already made their decision that he's not guilty on those acts. And this is the best comment you could come in here and say, because you're that mad over Diddy. You want to find Diddy guilty? You better go holler at the jurors. They the ones about to let him go walk free, not raise a raise. I'm just analyzing what the situation with this hung jury. Obviously, you got diddled by Diddy. Obviously, you big mad at Diddy and you want to see him in jail for life. You know what I mean? He diddled you, Paul. That's why you're big mad. You haven't asked the gram of Diddy. I don't have an asked the gram of Diddy. I don't know the man, never met him. Obviously, he diddled you, and now you want revenge, and you want him to be found guilty of the RICO racketeering. You know what I mean? I got Paul laughing. Hey, Undertaker. Didn't you just hear the breakdown of isn't my breakdown logical? Instead of just feelings, I broke it down. I don't know how you can not agree with that break. Now, it might not work out. They might find guilty, but I'm playing the odds game. If I was a betting man, I'm putting my money on the hung jury remains for the RICO, not guilty sex trafficking, and 70 to 30% guilty on the Mann Act. I mean, what else? What more? I'm not going to come up here and say he's guilty of all of those, but I'm not seeing it. It doesn't add up. Just look at the statutes. Look at the predicates. It doesn't add up for him to being guilty. Because, like I said, if they found him guilty already of sex trafficking in Mann Act, those are two predicates right there to convict them of the RICO racketeering. So why aren't they convicting them of the RICO racketeering? Now, like I said, I'm giving y'all an out. I'm putting all, only way is if they feel that, you know what, though he did it individually and it wasn't a criminal enterprise. And that's why they hung up on the RICO racketeering. But like I said, at that point, you might as well go ahead and convict him of RICO racketeering. He's already going to get at least 15 years anyway on the other charges that you found him guilty about. So what's the all of this tug of war fighting about for a RICO charge where you already doomed him to be in jail for at least 15 years? Really, if you say all the charges for Jane and Cassie, 15 years. If the judge want to sentence him up to 10 years each on the two. So basically 15, 30, 40, that's 50 years right there. If the judge want to give him the maximum. Now, he might say you serve it concurrent or whatever, but you already exposed that man to 15 years at least to life of transporting Cassie, 15 years to life of transporting Jane. How many years is that total? 30 years, unless he says you do it concurrent, whatever. I don't know how the sentencing guideline, but 30 years. He could say 30 years, 10 up to 10 years. So add another 10 years on each of those prostitution charges, the Mann Act. So 30, 40, 50. You already exposed this guy to up to 50 years and maybe life anyway. So why are you sitting there going back and forth arguing over the RICO racketeering charges? Obviously, you do not want to expose, some of the jurors don't want to expose them to the minimum of 10 years to life, which is the RICO racketeering. So that must mean in my head that they found him not guilty on the biggest charge, which is the sex trafficking, which is a minimum of 15 years to life. And maybe they found him guilty of the Mann Act. But hell, they could have probably acquitted him of the Mann Act too. And is trying to nail down whether or not they want to give him for the RICO. Because some people probably like, oh yeah, he did distribute. He distributed those drugs. He did burn Kid Cudi's car. He did extort Cassie's mother. He did bribe the hotel. So some jurors like, let's get him on a RICO. I think he did all that. Those are the predicates they need for the RICO. And they don't need the sex trafficking and the Mann Act prostitution because they got all these other things for. They only need two predicates to find him guilty of the RICO racketeering. It's 55 years old. All of them are the biggest charge. The biggest charge is the sex trafficking is the biggest charge because the minimum of the sex trafficking, one count of sex trafficking Jane and another count of sex trafficking Cassie. Minimum 15 years. The judge can't go less than 15 years. So that's 30 years you exposing him already. So if they already found them guilty of that, you might as well just go ahead and say guilty of the RICO. Why is all this back and why is this hung jury on the RICO? It makes no sense at that point. You got the two predicates for the RICO if you found them guilty. He not guilty. I was saying if the condom don't fit, you must have quit. He got two trafficking and two prostitution. Yeah, and the RICO. Yep. One trafficking Jane and one trafficking Cassie. And then the two prostitutions, you know, the Punisher and, you know, that other guy that testified, you know. He won't be dangerous if he does 15. Hey, you know, like I said, we'll find out. You know, we'll find out. The child with the $5 donation to the Raze Survey Fund. I appreciate you, the child. Great job on the 36,000 view live stream from yesterday. Yes, that was a big one. We you know, and like I said, I just came through, and I just bring common sense knowledge to a land of propaganda on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? And I try to not do propaganda over here for the most part. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. And when I see people are ganging up on one person, and I'm seeing, now you could gang up on a person if he deserves it. But when I see the facts and the evidence is not supporting him getting ganged up on that in that manner, I'm going to give it to you straight. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to set the record straight and be like, wait a minute, look at this other view, because the math ain't mathing. It ain't adding up. You know what I'm saying? But thank you for that $5 donation, the child. I appreciate you. Like I said, I did put in the title he was going to be innocent of the RICO, but now I'm like, well, they are kind of like dug in, so that might just remain hung jury. Then we'll see if they just drop that part of it and just do the other 4. Time served. Have a nice day, Diddy, says Glenn Hernandez. They should lock the guy prostitute up as well. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I'm going to give them the Mann Act, but to be honest with you, to be fair, why just lock up Diddy for engaging in the prostitution across state lines and not the prostitutes and not the company that actually sent him the prostitutes? You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. You know how it is. They target certain people. They target who they want. So it is what it is. I'm going to give him guilty in the Mann Act and not guilty on the other stuff. So. Yeah. Thank you, Michael Jordan. Yeah. Hey, like I said, and they played the thing, DJ Wu Kid, and I'm going to end on this. This should have been who, if they really wanted to get Diddy on a RICO racketeering, a criminal enterprise, then Cassie should have been put in handcuffs and presented by the feds and the prosecution as Sammy the Bull Gravano, as Diddy's underboss, because of these threats.
So you're telling me that he showed you a video of who kidnapped Cassie? Then that's not a real video because he's never
in that
me.
position, you would have been naked. I'm just saying, if you
So
were,
he's in the video.
I'm saying if I had a picture
Is
of
he
you naked,
in the video?
Yeah, but I'm saying if I had a picture,
Then that's not me.
But I'm just saying, look, hold on, you have to understand, if I had a picture of you naked.
If there's a picture of me naked, that's completely different than a video of me.
Just being real. So I'm just saying.
So the video that he showed you, he's in it.
Yeah, we can try to pull it.
How are you gonna? Oh no, your phones are right here.
Try to pull it. You can try to pull it. You can try to pull it.
On the internet?
Yeah, you can try to pull it.
Where?
I'm not gonna lie to you.
Okay, which phone?
You can bring
The
that phone.
Samsung?
Yeah, you can bring it.
So you have it or you don't have it? Can you just be clear with me? Do you have it?
I saw it and I don't want to ever see it again.
I know you don't, but I want to see it.
Yeah, but I don't want to see it, bro.
Yeah, you don't have to see it, but it's my life and I'll kill you.
Yeah, but
No, I will kill you if you don't show me right now. I will kill you and I will hide you and I will cut you up and put you in the dirt right now. Pull it up. If you have it, pull that up. Because if not, I'm going to kill you and then he's going to kill you again. So just do it. Pull that up right now.
You see, all the prosecution had to do, pull that audio out, charge Cassie as being a underboss of the conspiracy, racketeering, the mob that they trying to say that Bad Boy Records is, make Cassie Diddy's underboss, able to order hits on people and hide the body, and they probably would have got a unanimous guilty verdict on Diddy and Cassie. But no, they had to make Cassie a victim. It didn't fit their narrative. So instead of them putting out that audio in front of those 12 jurors, guess who did? The Diddy defense team used it. But I still to this day say, if they would have put handcuffs on Cassie, instead of parading her around like she's an innocent victim, they could have got their man by saying she's a part of the conspiracy. She's a part of the racket. She's a part of the mob, the mafia, which is Bad Boy Records, as Diddy's underboss. Diddy is Gotti. Cassie is Sammy the Bull Gravano. But nobody wants to talk about that. It doesn't fit the narrative, guys. It doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit the narrative that the feds, that the prosecution wanted to put out there in front of those 12 jurors. So they did not put it out there in front of the 12 jurors, but the Diddy defense team did, to show that she was not some weakling, some helpless person. Jones Bones with the $1.99 donation. Tisa Tells is standing on Diddy's shoulders. Well, yeah, like I said, Tisa Tells, she's not gonna let up. She's on. She's a contributor for Nancy Grace now. You know how Nancy Grace is. Nancy Grace used to be a prosecutor also. Nancy Grace be going in. So, but shout out to Tisa Tells. She making her money, man. So you know what I mean. It is what it is, and God bless her. That's facts. Yeah, they should have arrested Cassie. They would have got, if they would have arrested Cassie and used that audio to prove that Diddy was running a criminal organization and Cassie was his right-hand woman, the underboss, they would have had her. Because that's really the only evidence they got of anything. Cassie's own words. That's the only evidence they got of some real gangster stuff. Besides, everything else is just circumstantial. People testifying that Diddy said this and Diddy said that, but they don't really have no hardcore evidence. The biggest evidence they have on anything concerning a gangster racketeering enterprise was Cassie words herself, threatening to kill somebody and hide the body. Go figure. You can't make this stuff up. But as I'm putting this stuff out there in front of your faces, in front of your ears to listen to, the biased people that want to see Diddy guilty is going to say, oh, poor Cassie, she didn't mean that. She was just playing. She was just joking around. Well, I mean, that's why we are at where we are at. And that's why there is a hung jury right now, RICO racketeering. Woo, man. Thank you, the GOAT, Michael Jordan. Number 23 is in the building, not number 45. Not number 45. Number 23 is in the building with the $9.99 donation. Who the feds got next on their millionaire list that's paying better than a 9 to 5 to have sex? Woo! Man. Hey, Michael Jordan, and I'm telling you, man, I'm telling the Pastor Bros, be careful. Pastor Bros, be careful with bringing them girls back from Dominican Republic, Colombia, because they can get you on sex trafficking. Even if the girl says she's in love with you, even if the Dominican chick says she's in love with you, you have a real relationship for 3 years, Jane. You have a relationship 11 years, Cassie. They both say they love you, but they can say you trafficked that girl because you bought her gifts. You gave her a roof over her head, you gave her money, you bought her jewelry, and you coerced her to come into the States and having sex with you. Coercion is a crime according to the federal government. You could say, no, I convinced her. I didn't coerce her, I convinced her. I seduced her, but the government, if they want to get you, they just call it coercion. And guess what? You're hit with the sex trafficking. I'm just keeping it real. Nancy Grace was a victim before. Okay, Willie. Okay. But she was also a prosecutor. That's easy, Michael Jordan. The world is full of evil. Ain't no way he's getting found not guilty. Hey, the spill. Hey, they told me ain't no way he was going to get found not guilty of the RICO racketeering. They said, hey, Ray, they brung the charges. They got the evidence. But they're having trouble with finding him guilty of the RICO racketeering. I was told it was easy. I was told it was a slam dunk in my chat over the past few weeks. They already proved RICO Razor Raze. How can you not see? Are you blind, Razor Raze? He burnt the car. He extorted Cassie's mom. He distributed drugs. He sex trafficked. He did bribery. They show that evidence, Raze. They can't not find them guilty, Razor. But look at where we are right now. A hung jury on RICO, racketeering. Seems like a relationship to me. Yeah, toxic one, but you know, it was a relationship. Yeah. So no Clive Davis, Jimmy Levine, Ted Fields, you know. So the small link protected, pay attention. Hey, you know, I mean, yeah. But like I said, I think I made my point. We'll see what happens. This is just for entertainment purposes only. I'm just giving my prediction, like everybody else. And we're gonna see tomorrow. Hopefully they have a verdict by tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll see. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully we'll see. Thank you for your donations. Thank y'all, all the new people that came in. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I believe we had like over 500 people watching this live stream earlier. Thank you. I highly appreciate all the new people to the channel while I do these hot topics. We're going to have some more, after this is done, we're going to have some more travel topics because I'm more of a travel guy. But this has been fun, and we are coming to the conclusion of the Diddy saga. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Drew. Shout out to my guy, Drew. I appreciate you, Drew. I appreciate you. Free R. Kelly if you're going to free the diddler. Now, this is different. R. Kelly, I keep telling you guys, R. Kelly was convicted of dealing with minors. Diddy is not charged with dealing with minors. Those are not the charges. R. Kelly charges is a little different. R. Kelly was hit with the RICO, but he was also hit with 2 counts of dealing with minors. It is totally different than Diddy. It's not the same. It's not the same. And we were gaslit. It's not the same. It's just not the same. You know what I mean? If it's just not the same. I'm gonna just get off of that. It's not the same. It's not. He wasn't even charged with dealing with minors. And you know, if the feds had evidence of him dealing with minors, I know all those lawsuits, they would have picked out one of those credible, people that's doing the lawsuits under Tony Busby's firm and added it to this case to make the case to really put the death knell in Diddy. But they didn't do it because obviously they did not find those people doing those lawsuits credible enough to add it to the charges. You get what I'm saying? And that's why they didn't call any witnesses that say they were underage when this stuff happened. And like I said, they didn't even call nobody that said they were drugged. So, you know. I've been waiting for. I've been saying over the past couple of weeks. I've been saying that this is for the past couple of weeks. That's why I changed my stance on. Like I said, let me look at the facts of the case first. I didn't make my decision on whether or not he should be found guilty or not, or any. I said, let me see what the feds. I gave the feds a chance. I gave them like 3 weeks. I've been going down to the courthouse. I've been waiting. I've been keeping an open mind. I was playing it down the middle. But then after like all the testimonies, all the 30 witnesses, I'm like, after like the 20th witness, I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. This definitely not a RICO racketeering charge. Then I'm like, all right, maybe they're gonna bring up some big time witness that really just blows the doors down, and it never happened. They got Diddy on the Mann Act. All right. I mean, they got R. Kelly on the Mann Act. Okay. But if you look at the chart, they did also get him on, I believe, transportation of a minor, and I believe child pornography also. Look at the conviction. So his charges is just charges that, yeah. Let me see. It should be over later on today because they got the 4 verdicts, but they didn't announce them. They are a hung jury on a RICO, right? So we're gonna see. Let me leave you guys on this. Since we're coming to the conclusion of the case, the possibility Diddy may walk free and be home for the 4th of July, and then we're going to call it a night, guys. Shout out to you guys.
Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial will resume tomorrow as a third personal assistant is set to take the stand. Over the first couple of weeks, jury members heard explosive testimony detailing the alleged physical and emotional abuse Combs caused. Let's bring in David Gelman, former prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney. David, welcome.
Hey, Mike, good to be here.
So in week 2 of testimony, jurors heard from a dozen witnesses as prosecutors try to prove sex trafficking and racketeering. What are your expectations when court resumes tomorrow?
It's going to be really interesting tomorrow when Diddy's third or fourth assistant takes a stand, and she's going to actually corroborate Kid Cudi's testimony from last week, where he said that Diddy and another associate of his bombed his Porsche years ago at his house. Now, you have to have cooperation about that because nobody can put Diddy there. And in fact, nobody even can say Diddy's the actual one who did it. But if they can say that Diddy or an associate of his did it, then you may have a racketeering charge there. Because right now, as it stands, Mike, nothing, and I mean nothing, is sticking to Diddy.
Diddy's lawyers are trying to make the case that his escapades do not amount to federal crimes. How difficult is that argument?
I think they're doing a fantastic job, honestly. Look, everybody has said, and Diddy's lawyers even said it in their opening statement, Diddy is not a good guy. There's a lot of domestic violence that occurred between him and Cassie in their relationship. However, what we've heard so far from the testimony of Cassie and the other individuals does not amount to the federal charges that he's being charged with right now. I'm not going to say anything that we heard is very good because it's all horrific. However, the state or the government in this particular instance needs to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he conspired to racketeer, to sex traffic, and to promote prostitution. So far, they're falling way behind in this. And I know there's a lot more to go in this trial because they're saying it's going to be about 8 weeks. But the government really better step on the gas because they don't have a lot more time to go.
So the play seems to be maybe admit to a state crime that avoids prison time. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so. Look, again, you're hearing about all this domestic violence, but all that has nothing to do with what Diddy is charged with. There's a possibility, and I'm saying a very strong possibility right now, that Diddy could walk, that he could be spending 4th of July at home having a barbecue.
Interesting. David Gelman, thank you very much for your analysis today.
Guys, and we're going to leave it at that. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. We will be back live tomorrow morning in case of a verdict. This has been fun. This has been great. And hopefully we get an answer. Is Diddy going to be found guilty on all charges? Or will he be found not guilty, acquitted, and be walking home enjoying 4th of July with his family around the grill? Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. I'm Raze, and I am out.